Hi everybody, this is David from Beagle Home Inspections, and today we're going to continue in our series, Common Issues Found During a Home Inspection. And today we're going to concentrate on insulation. Obviously, in the walls of your house, I can't see it, so I can't inspect that. So what I'll do is inspect the insulation where I can see it. For example, in your attic or in your crawl space if you have one. If you have an unfinished basement, I can see the insulation there, which obviously if your basement's finished, I can't see that. Also, what I want to see is what insulation they do have under your main floor system. So what I want to look for is like the depth. What kind of insulation? How is it laid out? Is there any irregularities or anything like that in there? So with that said, let's jump right into it, and we'll just head on up to the attic and let's see what's going on. Okay, so we're up in the attic. We're going to look at the insulation in there. There's two different kinds of insulation that they use in the attic. One is batting. It's mostly fiberglass. It's on those big rolls. So it looks like there's a piece of paper on one side, then there's a really thick cotton candy stuck to the other side. That's really nice to use. It's been used for years and years and years, a long time, and it works really well. Just make sure you put it in with the right side to where it's supposed to go. The second side is blown insulation. Now, the blown insulation can be different materials, so you need to know which material you're using to figure out how to get it in there and what depth you need. The nice thing about the blown insulation is when you get it in there, you can get a really nice even layer, so you get good R value throughout the whole attic. Now, the downsides to each one of those is batting. One, it may not be long enough, so you have it a little short on the ends, or it may not be wide enough to fit between your joists, and it could have got wet or something, and the paper starts to break down. If it's put in upside down, it can trap moisture where moisture shouldn't be trapped. Those are some of the downsides to it. And sometimes when people go up and work in their attic and do different things, add fans or run electric lines and stuff like that, it can get moved, it can be misplaced, or it can get put off to the side and then never replaced. So those are the things with the batting. With blown insulation, after it's in, you really don't want to step on it because you're going to ruin that R value for every place you step on. And what I see often on there is that when people go up there, they add an extra fan or they add, whatever they're doing, change some lights in the ceiling. So they got to get up there, add a fan in the room or whatever. The insulation gets moved out of the way, but then it never gets put back where it was. And something with blown insulation too, a lot of times once you start messing with it, it compacts itself a little more, and then the R value is not what it was. So those are the things I see most of the time. The other thing I see with blown insulation also is towards the edges of the roof where you have the venting happens for attics, is that some of that insulation gets covering the vents so that you don't have as good of ventilation as you should have in your attic. So with blown insulation, depending on what it is, if you just want to take a look in yours, most people put a little ruler thing up along on one of the boards in your attic. Take a look. It should be right around 18 inches. That's a little more, a little less, depending on what the material is, but that's kind of a good gauge to see that. The other thing with batting, what I'm seeing every once in a while now is there wasn't enough put in there originally. So instead of adding another layer of batting, what people are doing, just leaving that there, make sure it's all good. Then they blow insulation, a few inches of insulation on top of that, which that's totally fine. Just so long as you get up, you want an R value of close to 49-ish here along the Front Range in Colorado. So whatever it takes for you to get that is really going to help your house out a lot. The other thing to watch out for is make sure the venting system of your attic is not impaired by the blown insulation or the batting or anything like that. So that's what I see up in the attic as far as insulation. So now what we're going to do is move down to the basement or the crawl space. Okay, so we're in the basement. It's really pretty simple. If your basement's finished, it's kind of like the upstairs of the house. I can't see the insulation. If it's unfinished, what I can see is, are there just bare concrete walls, or is there a vapor barrier and an insulation barrier up? And it's very obvious whether it is or not. When you go to finish your basement, if it's not finished already, you need to put that vapor barrier up and the insulation up against the cement wall to keep control of some of your temperatures. Also, while you're in the basement, what you're going to look for is you look up at the floor joists. Very rarely do you see insulation in this situation. for the simple reason being, even throughout your house and walls and floors, any barrier between two conditioned spaces doesn't need insulation in it, because you want everything you want the temperature to move and be as equal as possible. Insulation slows that process down. And when we're trying to heat the whole inside of your house, the walls inside your house, they don't have insulation in them. So it's easier for the heat to transfer, to heat up everything, and your heater and air conditioning don't have to work quite as hard. So with that, we go down to the crawl space. In there's two conditions that can happen. One, if it's natural ventilation, you need to make sure that, yeah, the holes are there. But what you want to look for is basically a moisture barrier on the ground, and then you do need insulation up under the floor, because the temperatures can change quite a bit in a natural ventilated crawl space. And also, if you have any ductwork down there, you need to make sure that that is insulated so you don't lose heat or cool energy as air is moving through there, depending on what season it is. The other thing is that your crawl space can be a conditioned space, so you need to make sure that all the holes are filled in, so there's no natural ventilation coming in and out. And also, it is a good idea also to have a moisture barrier on the ground, and then another moisture barrier. And a lot of times people put insulation under the floor also. Just that little added extra precaution to keep temperatures where they are. So the basement and the crawl space, very straightforward. Can you see the insulation? Is it supposed to be there, or does it not need to be? So it's pretty simple there. In the attic, basically the same way. Is it there? Is it where it needs to be? So that's it for insulation. If you have any questions or comments, give me a call, or check out the website. You can get in touch with me through there, or you can email me at david@beaglehomeinspections.com. And everybody, get out and do something, be safe, and I'll see you next time.